Hi, hello everybody. How are you today? So I hope you had wonderful weekends and you had a nice week. And today is our webinar on English ЗНО preparation number 13. So today we will talk about conjunctions, their linking words, and we will discuss some writing tips. But actually, so this topic, the topic of conjunctions and linking words, is useful both for your reading section and also for your writing. Also, it might be useful for your use of English section. So actually, that's a universal topic which will help you pass your exam successfully. And before we start, so let's check what you know on this topic, and let's look at some sentences. So you can see that some words are missing in them. So your task is to look at the sentences and think which words, which one word or maybe some words we can use in these gaps to make the sentences better, to join them together. Перевіримо, що ви вже знаєте з цієї теми. І подивіться на ці речення. Ви бачите, що тут пропущені якісь слова зв'язки. Ваша задача прочитати їх і подумати, яке слово або декілька ми можемо використати, щоб об'єднати ці частини речення. And the first one. I really want to visit your country in spring. The borders remain closed. So, what can be used in this gap? How can we link these parts of the sentence together? I really want to visit your country in spring. The borders remain closed. Borders remain closed means кордони залишаються закритими. Okay, so waiting for your ideas. You can put number 1 and what you think we can use in this gap. Чекаю на ваші ідеї. Пишіть також номера і що ви вважаєте може бути використаним тут. Okay, so I can see the first idea, but. And actually, yeah, so that is really easy here, so we can use but. Я дуже хочу відвідати твою країну весною, але кордони все ще залишаються закритими. Number 2. I'm not sure I'll be able to visit your country. The borders remain closed. I'm not sure I will be able to visit your country. The borders remain closed. Yeah, so number 1 is but. What is number 2? Actually, also it is possible to use here but. Also, we can use here because. I'm not sure I will be able to visit your country. Because the borders remain closed. Тому що я не зможу відвідати твою країну, тому що кордони залишаються закритими. Okay, let's move on. I'm dreaming about visiting your country. That is the first sentence. We have the full stop, and then we have the next one. I'm not sure the borders will be opened in spring. So here we have two sentences. Yeah, so we want to link not two parts of one sentence together, but we want to link two ideas, two different sentences. And here, so we can use however. However, хоча, однак. Однак, я не впевнена, що кордони будуть відкриті до весни або весною. So we can use however at the beginning of the sentence. We can also use it in the middle of the sentence. But so be careful because after and before however, we use commas. So if we use however in the middle of the sentence, then we will have a comma before it and a comma after it. So if it is the beginning of the sentence, we will have a comma after however. The next one. The borders remain closed. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to visit your country. So actually, this sentence looks nice. So we can just say as it is, or we can add one more word and make it even more interesting. So the borders remain closed. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to visit your country. And so here we can also use therefore. Therefore can mean тому. So the borders remain closed. I'm not sure, therefore. Тобто кордони залишаються закриті, і через це тому я не впевнений, чи зможу відвідати твою країну. So here, therefore, that's very, very close to because in the meaning. And the last one. Closed borders. I'm going to visit your country in spring. And here we would say, не дивлячись на закриті кордони, я все одно відвідую твою країну весною. So what can be used in 5? Yes, you write despite. Yes, possible. So we can use here in spite of, or we can use despite. So that will be the same, no difference here. So we can say in spite of closed borders, or we can say despite closed borders. Good. So let's look at seven most common conjunctions, most commonly used conjunctions in English. And so they are often associated with an acronym, fanboys. And in this word fanboys, every letter stands for one conjunction. So let's look at them. F stands for, A, that is and, N, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So let's try to fill in the gaps in the sentences using these conjunctions, the ones you can see on the top, and we will discuss so what is the meaning. Let's start with the first one, and I'm waiting for your ideas, what we can use here. So we will try to use these 7 conjunctions on the top, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Cheryl has a great job. She is a very unhappy person. Yeah, so in the first one, that is possible to use but. Anything else? Okay, so let's look but. Yeah, so but, so that is simple, that is possible. Cheryl has a great job, but she is a very unhappy person. We can't use here so in number 1 because that is not logical, so тому. Yeah, so we won't say, у Шері дуже хороша робота, тому вона нещаслива людина. No, here we want to show contrast. А тут ми хочемо якраз контраст показати. В неї хороша робота, але вона почувається нещасливою. So let's move to number 2. The sun is shining brightly. The picnic was still cancelled. So here in number 2, that is also possible to use but. Yes, but let's think what else. What else is possible here? Again, so we can't use here so because that is not logical. Yeah, so in number 2 we can't use so because that doesn't make any sense. So we won't say сонце світило яскраво, тому пікник відмінили. So here again we want to show contrast. And here we can use yet. And yet has the same meaning as but. So in this sentence, yet means but. And actually, so in number 2 and in number 1, we can use but or we can use yet. And the meaning will be the same. So in number 1, we can also say, Cheryl has a great job, yet she is a very unhappy person. Or in number 2, we can say, the sun is shining brightly, but the picnic was still cancelled. Or we can say, the sun is shining brightly, yet the picnic was still cancelled. So they are very similar. They are the same in terms of the meaning. So yet, that is more formal. And yet is usually used in writing. So let's move on. Let's move to number 3. The security lines are very long at the airport. You should probably leave early for your flight. And line, in number 3, lines means черги, security lines. Черги в аеропорту дуже довгі. You should probably leave early for your flight. So you say and. Okay, might be possible here. Okay, why not? We can use and in number 3. But it's very logical. It's very nice to use here so, because we have the reason and the result. Черги дуже довгі, тому тобі слід вийти раніше. Then 4. John doesn't like chicken. Does he like pork or burgers? And in number 4, pay attention at the word order. So we have the auxiliary verb after the gap, then we have the subject, and we have the verb. So in number 4, yes, right you are, we use nor. So nor means також ні. Джон не любить курку, і також йому не подобаються бургери з яловичиною. So be careful that, please remember that after nor, we change the word order. So after nor, we will use the auxiliary verb. Після nor будемо використовувати інший порядок слів, допоміжне дієслово. Then we will have the subject, далі підмет, and we will have the verb. І основне дієслово. The next. So your ideas. Yes, and here that is easy. In 5, we can use or. So I will go to Montreal or Quebec. Number 6. Sheila works hard. She makes a lot of money. Oh, number 6. Okay, so waiting for your ideas for number 6. Actually, we have only two options left, so that's not hard. Yes, and see, in 6, that is simple. We can use and. Sheila works hard and she makes a lot of money. And number 7. And the last one here, that is for. And for, in this sentence, it also means because. So for and because can be used as conjunctions, and they can be used as synonyms, so they have the same meaning. And again, so because that is more informal, and for that is more formal, and we usually use for, not because in writing. So in writing, we can also use because. But if you want to make it more formal, then you can also use for. So in number 7, we can say, he loves her more than anything in the world, for she is reliable and kind. Or we can say, because she is reliable and kind. Good. So let's go on, and let's look at some more practice tasks for you. And you know that in your reading section of the test, you have a task where you need to fill in the gaps. So you have a text, and you have some gaps in this text. And sometimes you need to choose some options to continue the sentence, or you need to use the next sentence. And very often in tasks like this, in the reading section, you will have some conjunctions, you will have some linking words, and it's very important to pay attention to them. It can be really, really helpful for you. В завданнях на читання знаємо, що є секція, де потрібно заповнити пропуски в тексті. І от в таких завданнях якраз дуже часто зустрічаються такі сполучники, слова, зв'язки, тому обов'язково звертаємо на них увагу, і зараз ми потренуємося це робити. So, the task is really, really simple. You just need to match the beginning of the sentence and its ending. And I already can see some answers for one. So let's wait for some more ideas and then we'll discuss together. I did my best to pass my exam. And yes, we can use D, yet I failed. So again, yet has the same meaning as but. So it can be translated as я робила все, що можу, щоб здати іспит, але або проте усе ж таки провалилась. Okay, waiting for your ideas for number 2. I got a seat in the front row. Я сіла на місце в передньому ряду. And what can be the ending? And you're right, so we can use F for. For, I was really interested in the lecture topic. So for, that is, it has the same meaning as because, but that is more formal. But also we can use here because. We can say because I was really interested in the lecture topic. So wonderful. I can see that all the answers in the chat are correct. So good job. Then let's take number 3. You can speak English and Spanish fluently. 3 is actually really, really easy because that's very easy to guess. What goes next? It will be E, but his French is not so good. Also, in number 3, that's possible to use not but yeah, we can use yet. He can speak English and Spanish fluently, yet his French is not so good. Number 4, nobody expected Sam to get the job. So pay attention to the first part of the sentence. We have here nobody, so that's a negative part. Yeah, we have a negation here. And in number 4, yes, you're right, we will use G. Nor did I. Ніхто не очікував, що Сем отримає роботу, і я також ні. So nor has the meaning також ні. Nor did I. And again, so pay attention to the word order after nor. Також зверніть знову увагу на порядок слів після nor. Nor did I. So the auxiliary and then the subject. And the 5th. Everybody was eager to participate in charity. Okay, you say C is also possible for number 4. Yes, why not? Might be. And for number 5, we will use C. But the manager. And here, but has the meaning except for, окрім. Всі хотіли взяти участь в благодійності, окрім менеджера. Тобто тут but має значення окрім когось. Тобто, якщо ми використовуємо but і далі іменник або займенник, тоді може означати окрім когось. Number 6. I will get my car serviced. And that is A for sure. Well, there is something wrong with the brakes. Тому що щось трапилося з тормозами, з гальмами. And the last one, so you already know the answer for 7, that is B. And we say it was raining heavily, so we decided to stay at home. Йшов сильний дощ, тому ми залишились вдома. So good job. And so some more examples, some more conjunctions which we can use for different reasons. And in English, so again, we can use conjunctions, we can use linking words to show cause, reason, result, also for contrasting, to give some examples, for sequencing, and to add some more information. So you can see some examples of the conjunctions of auxiliaries on the slide, and let's match them to their functions. So look at the examples in A, B, C, D, and E, and let's match them with their function. So what can we use to show cause, reason, or result? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? So look at them, look them through, and let's choose. One, that is C. So we can use because, so, therefore, consequently, as a result, because of, due to, on account of, owing to. So we'll discuss what's the difference between them a bit later. But now you're right, yes. So in C, we have some examples of conjunctions for cause, reason, and result. Now let's move to contrasting. What can we use for contrasting, to contrast some ideas? D, yes, definitely. Then to give some examples. And what about number 3? And for 3, yes, that is E. Good. Number 4? And for number 4, we will use B. So sequencing, that is to show the order of the events. Щоб показати порядок. We can use first, next, after that, then, firstly, secondly, finally. And to add some information, that is A. Yeah, so only one is left. Yeah, we can use such words as and, as well as also, anyway, besides, furthermore, and in addition, moreover, similarly. Okay, so let's move on. Let's discuss some conjunctions which we can use for addition. So very simple, we can use and. Yeah, so we use and to join words or part of sentences. And you can see the example here. I need to call Andy and find out when he's free to have meeting. But also we can use some other words in this case. So now look at the second sentence, look at the second example, and let's try to think which word we can use to emphasize the fact that there are two things. So when we talk about two things, which word we can use? You have an example sentence. I need to call Andy and Helen. So which word can we use when we talk about two things? And we want to emphasize that we talk about two things. Okay, so your ideas to the chat, please. And we can use both. Yes. So I can say I need to call both Andy and Helen. Both means обом, обидва, обом. А мені потрібно подзвонити обом, і Енді, і Helen. Good. And also some more words we can use to add another fact or to say that something happens at the same time. So let's look what we can use in this case. We can use to, as well as, and also. Now look at the sentences, look at the examples and think. So let's try to think which of these words we can use in each of them. So let's start with the first one. I need to call Andy, Kate, and Helen. And so which of these words can we use in the end? At the end of the sentence. I need to call Andy, Kate, and Helen. So do we use here to, as well as, or also? So, yes, we can use to or as well. So we can put as well or we can put to at the end of the sentence, and we don't need to use anything after them. Then in number 2, I need to call again, so the same sentence but with some changes. I need to call Andy and Kate, Helen. Мені потрібно подзвонити Енді і Кейт, а також Helen. So what is possible to use here? Yes, and here we can put as well as. So we can put as well at the end of the sentence, but we can use as well as if we will mention one more person or one more thing after that. So after as well as, we need to use the name of the person or any other noun, so any other subject, not subject, but a noun. Good. And number 3, I need to call Andy, Kate, and here we say and also Helen. So very often we use and also together. I need to call Andy, Kate, and also Helen. А також. So these words, they are often used in pairs. So we can say both and either or neither nor. And there are two options, two variants of pronunciation. We can say either, neither, or we can say either, neither. So let's look at them. And the first picture, you can see a cup of coffee and you can see a cup of tea. And so we know that coffee contains caffeine and tea contains caffeine. So what will we use in the gaps in the first sentence? And here we can use both tea and coffee. Both tea and coffee contain caffeine. Це може перекладатись як і чай, і кава. Тобто обидва. Now, the second picture, the second example. So in the morning, this person drinks a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, but not both. And so then it's possible to use either or. In the morning, I drink either tea or coffee, not both. Тобто або чай, або каву, але не обидва. So we can use either or when we want to choose one thing out of two. Використовуємо either or, коли хочемо сказати один з двох. And then, so that's really easy to guess that in number 3 we will use neither nor. Neither tea nor coffee contains gluten. Ні той, ні той. Ні чай, ні кава не містить глютен. And we call them correlative conjunctions. So let's practice. So some more practice for you. You can see some correlative conjunctions on the top, and your task will be to fill in the gaps in the sentences with them. And so let's look what we've got here. We have whether or. So here the meaning of whether is similar to if. Also we have as, both and, either or either, or neither or neither, nor, not, but, not only but also. And so your ideas for the first sentence. You earn an A, get a lower grade, do your best. Earn an A, here it's about a mark. Тут про оцінку. Earn an A – заробити оцінку A, тобто найвищий бал. So look at the correlative conjunctions on the top, and let's fill in the gap. Let's fill in the gaps in the first sentence, in the first example. Yeah, so it will be whether you earn an A or get a lower grade, do your best. Тобто, навіть якщо отримаєш A, або якщо отримаєш нижчу оцінку, все одно старайся, все одно роби все, що можеш. Number 2. John, Bill are excellent tennis players. So we have two people here. And John is an excellent tennis player, and Bill is an excellent tennis player. So we use both. Both John and Bill. Обидва, і John, і Bill. Then the third. The professor, the students understood the problem. So let's go to number 3. Not only but also possible. That is possible for number 3. There is also one more option. Not only the professor but also the students. Yes, so that is good. What else can we use in 3? Also, we can say neither nor. Neither the professor nor the students understood the problem. Тобто ні професор, ні студенти не зрозуміли. Ні той, ні інший. So we can use neither nor. Number 4. And in 4 we have I not only lost the game, but also hurt my ankle. Не лише програв гру, але і поранив голень. So, and not only, but also very often they go together. So they go in a pair. And if you have a task, so again, this fill in the gaps task, and you have the first part of the sentence with not only, then look for but also for the second part, because very often they are used together. Not only, but also. Number 5. Professor Jackins is patient, stimulating. Patient – терплячий. And that is not only patient, but also stimulating. Okay, and number 6. I already can see some answers. As tall as. Barbara is as tall as Mary. Барбара така ж висока, як і Мері. Такий як можемо використовувати as. As tall as, такий високий як. As big as, такий великий як. As clever as, такий розумний як. Wonderful. Some more practice for you. So we've got a lot of practice tasks today. And So you can say 8 sentences. Some of them are correct, some of them are not. So your task is to read the sentence. You need to think if it is correct or not, and if it has the mistake, also you need to correct this mistake. So we will start with number 1. Put your ideas to the chat. Please write, is it correct or not? And if it is not correct, what is the mistake? He hadn't done any homework. Neither had he brought any of his books to class. So the first one, is it correct or not? And yes, sure, so this one is correct. So no problems here, no mistakes. Він не зробив домашку і також не приніс ще й книжки. So we use neither, and after neither we have, again, the auxiliary, and then we have the subject. And also we have a negation in the first part. So if we have a negation in the first part, then we can use neither for the second part. Then number 2, is it correct or not? And so I will help you a bit. Number 2 is not correct, so there is a mistake. Let's find it. We didn't get to see the castle, nor didn't we see the cathedral. What is the mistake in number 2? So, and the mistake is that we use did, not didn't. Because if we use nor didn't, it will be double negation. Якщо використаємо nor і далі didn't, це буде подвійне заперечення. В англійській мові ми не використовуємо подвійні заперечення. So then after nor, we will have only a positive part. Тому після nor, після neither може бути лише далі позитивне речення. Заперечне використати не можемо. So number 3, correct or not? And that is also incorrect. But let's think why. I hate snakes. I can't even look at a picture of a snake. So what can be the reply? The mistake is in the last sentence. So what can we use in number 3 for the last sentence, for the reply? Тут помилка, підказую в останньому реченні у відповіді. And right you are, so we use here neither can I. Я ненавиджу змій, і інша людина відповідає, я також ненавиджу. Тобто також ні, ми можемо, для того, щоб сказати також ні, ми можемо використати neither. І після neither, знову ж таки, змінюємо порядок слів. Neither can I. So number 4, that is correct. Nor does Gina. Yeah, so again, we have nor, а також ні, and after nor we use the auxiliary. Number 5. And 5, that is also correct. Either candidate is good. Тобто в нас є два кандидати, будь-який з них хороший. Either is good. 6. Neither of the candidates are good. Okay, so a question in the chat. Can we say I can't too? No, guys, please remember, we don't say I can't too, so we don't use too for a negative reply. So in this case, we can use neither. Yeah, so for example, if I say I don't like tea, you can say neither do I, for example. Тобто, щоб сказати також ні, використовуємо neither or nor. Number 6, yeah, so that is incorrect, and the mistake is with the verb. So we use is. Neither of the candidates is good. It's a little bit confusing because we have candidates, so that is plural. But please remember that with neither, the same as with nobody or no one, we use the singular verb. So the same verb as with he, she, it. So the same form verb, the same form of the verb. Запам'ятовуємо, що після neither, так само як після nobody, no one, ми використовуємо дієслово в однині, тобто така ж сама форма дієслова, як для he, she, it. Не дивлячись на те, що candidates тут стоїть в множині, все одно ми будемо використовувати дієслово в однині. Number 7. Neither John nor Paula can come. Correct or not? And number 7 is correct. Ні John, ні Paula не можуть прийти. And number 8, it has a mistake, so let's find it. So we speak about two pictures, and the person says, I didn't like this picture, and I didn't like that picture. So what is the mistake in 8? So we can't say, I didn't like neither of the pictures, because again, so that is double negation. We can't say didn't and neither. But we can use here either. So I didn't like either of the pictures. Ніяка з картинок мені не сподобалась. Or we can change the structure and we can say, I liked neither of the pictures. So we have two options. We can say, I didn't like either, or I liked neither of the pictures. And let's move on. So let's look at some words we can use for contrast, to contrast some ideas. And so first of all, let's have a look at them. Let's discuss what we use after, and then we will practice. So first of all, we can use although, even though, or though. And after them, we will need to use a sentence. So it will be a subject plus a verb. We can use in spite of, or we can use despite. Please, again, remember that after despite, we don't use of. So in spite of, or despite, and after them we use gerund, so that is the ing form of the verb. So we use gerund, or we use a noun. Після in spite of, despite використовуємо або герундій, це форма дієслова з закінченням ing, або іменник. Or if you are scared, if you are scared to make a mistake, and you don't know what to use after in spite of or despite, you can say in spite of the fact that, or you can say despite the fact that, and after that you will use a simple sentence. So you will use a subject and a verb. Також те ж саме можна сказати in spite of the fact that, або despite the fact that, і тоді після них, а якщо ми додаємо the fact that, після цих фраз тоді ми використовуємо звичайне речення, підмети присудок. Also, there are some words like whereas, while, but, however, even so, nevertheless, still, and yet. I can see in the chat you ask, поясніть значення neither. Neither, it means також ні. Або ми можемо сказати жоден. Наприклад, у нас є дві картинки, і я можу сказати, жодна з них мені не сподобалась. Тоді можемо використати neither. I can say, I liked neither this nor this picture. Ні та, ні інша. So what about the first sentence? My brother likes team sports. I prefer individual sports. What can we use for the first one? And so here more than one option is possible. For example, we can use here whereas, or we can use but. Мій брат любить командні види спорту, але мені більше подобаються індивідуальні. So possible to use whereas, also possible to use but. And number 2. Dan is an athlete. He refuses to eat healthily. Yeah, and also in the first sentence we can use while. Possible. So then number 2. Dan is an athlete. He refuses to eat healthily. And here we can put although, or we can put even though, or we can use though. So we can say even though Dan is an athlete, or although Dan is an athlete, he refuses to eat healthily. Не дивлячись на те, що Ден спортсмен, він не їсть корисну їжу, не харчується здоровою їжею. In number 3, so look what goes after the gap. We have the ing form of the verb. So we have participating. And if we have the ing form, then we will use in spite of, or also it's possible to use despite. We can say in spite of participating in many competitions, or we can say despite participating in many competitions, не дивлячись на те, що він брав участь в багатьох змаганнях. Number 4. And again, so look what goes after the gap. After the gap, we have the weather. So that is a noun. So what do we need to use before the gap so that we can use a noun after that? В четвертому також, дивіться, після пропуску у нас йде іменник, тому що ми можемо використовувати перед пропуском, щоб далі у нас мав би бути іменник. And that can be despite. Despite the weather, не дивлячись на погоду, they played outside. Then 5th. Jane enjoys playing tennis. She doesn't like watching it on TV. It's possible to use though. Though Jane enjoys playing tennis, she doesn't like watching it on TV. Or we can also use although. Although Jane enjoys playing tennis. Or we can say even though. So after although, even though, we use the subject and we use the verb. So that's like a simple sentence. Although, так, не зважаючи на. Then for 6, that is possible to use in spite of the fact, or we can say despite the fact. In spite of the fact that I live very close to work, I still drive there. Or we can say despite the fact that. Also, we need here that. In spite of the fact that. And the last one. So here we can use however. We can use however at the beginning of the sentence. Here we've discussed it with you. And also after however we use comma. And here we can see comma in the sentence. So all is fine here. Yeah, also that is possible to use here nevertheless. Also possible. Or even so. Good. So let's look at the difference. What is the difference between but, though, and although? So the meaning is very, very similar. And actually, there is only one difference. So although, that is more formal, and though and but, more informal. So that is the same. We can say in theory, it seems like a good idea, but I don't think it will work in practice. Or we can say in theory it seems like a good idea, although or though I don't think it will work in practice. So the meaning is the same, but although is more formal, though but are more informal. And also there is one more thing to remember here, is that we can use although or we can use though at the beginning of the sentence. But we usually don't use but at the beginning of the sentence. So at the beginning, that is better to use although. So we can say, although it seems like a good idea, I don't think it will work in practice. And also, let's look at the example number 3. It seems like a good idea. I don't think it will work in practice, though. So that is also possible to use though at the end of the sentence. Though також можемо використовувати в самому кінці речення. Although і but ми не можемо використати в самому кінці речення, а though можна. Good. And also there is one more word to make a contrast, and that is yet. So also we've discussed it with you. Yet has a very similar meaning to but, and also we can use it to make contrast. So we can say, in theory it seems like a good idea, but or yet I don't think it will work in practice. And so once again, the phrase is like in spite of, or also we can use the word despite to show the contrast, and it will mean although, не дивлячись на щось. But again, so please be careful, that's a very, very common mistake. So after despite and after in spite of, we use a gerund or we use a noun. Запам'ятайте, що після despite, після in spite of ми використовуємо або герундій, або використовуємо іменник. And here we can see that the first sentence is correct. We can say, despite feeling ill, I went to work. Не дивлячись на те, що погано почувався, пішов на роботу. And number 2, that is wrong. Because after despite, we need to use the ing form, or we need to use a noun. And let's look at some conjunctions to give reason. So we can use because. That is really simple. After because we use a subject and a verb. Also we can use because of, через щось. And after because of, we use a gerund, we can use a noun, or we can use a pronoun. Після because of також уважно використовуємо або герундій, або іменник, або займенник. Also we can say because of, on account of, owing to, due to. And after them, we will use gerund or we will use a noun. Or we can say, so the same as with in spite of, despite, we can say owing to the fact that, or due to the fact that, and then we will use a sentence. We will use the subject and a verb. And also we can use as and since, and the subject plus a verb. So let's look at the sentences and let's try to fill in the gaps. I made a sandwich. I was hungry. So after the gap, we have a sentence. We have I was. So we have a subject. We have a verb. And that is possible to use because, for example. I made a sandwich because I was hungry. Or also it's possible to use here since. I made a sandwich since I was hungry. Or I made a sandwich as I was hungry. So what is possible for number 2? I argued with Sarah. And so pay attention that after the gap we have you. You, it's a pronoun. So I argued with Sarah because of you. Я посперечався з Сарою через тебе. Okay, because of, yes, number 3. She didn't play well. She hadn't practiced for a few weeks. Again, after the gap, we have a sentence. So what are the possible options? Yeah, we can say due to the fact that, we can say owing to the fact that, also because. So a lot of options are possible here. In number 3, we can also use since. So in number 4, we can use because of. They cancelled the match because of the heavy rain. Or we can also use due to. Yeah, so they cancelled the match due to the heavy rain. or owing to the heavy rain. Number 5. It's possible to use as or since. I'm tired, as I didn't sleep well, or I'm tired since I didn't sleep well, or we can say I'm tired because I didn't sleep well. And in 6, possible to use on account of. Anna decided to call Phil on account of the time. Щодо часу. On account of щодо чогось. Анна вирішила подзвонити Філу щодо часу, з цього приводу. And again, so what is the difference between because and as and since? So again, the meaning is very, very similar, but because that is used in more informal, so that is more informal. It's used in more informal style, and as and since, that is more formal. And we can use as and since for formal writing, for example, or for semi-formal letters. But also it's possible to use because, but it will be less formal in this case. And so some practice. What do you choose for number 1? And so here we can see that after the gap we have the ing form, so we have gerund. So that is possible, that is nice to use here despite having trained hard all year. Let's go to number 2. I enjoyed playing football. My brother prefers watching it on TV. And here D, that is the right answer. Whereas my brother prefers watching it on TV. Але мені подобається грати в футбол, але мій брат надає перевагу тому, щоб подивитись футбол по телевізору. And number 3. And let's look at number 2. So it's possible to use however, but if we use however, we also need commas. But we don't have any commas in this sentence. So then, no however in number 2. But that would be logical, yes. In terms of the meaning, that is possible to use however. And the third one, that is A, in spite of being advised not to. Yeah, so after in spite of, we use the ing form, and all is nice here. Good, and let's go on and let's discuss some conjunctions of result. So look at the 2 sentences and your ideas what to use in them. So I'm calling to complain. The goods are damaged. So that is pretty simple. I'm sure you know that we can use here because. And then in the second sentence, we will use so. So we have the reason and we have the result. Я телефоную, щоб пожалітись, тому що продукція була пошкоджена. And the second sentence, продукція була пошкоджена, тому я телефоную, щоб пожалітись. So in the first sentence, that is about the reason. And in the second sentence, we show the result. So let's look what we can use here. So to speak about the result, we can use such phrases or such words as a result, consequently, therefore. And after them, we will use a subject and a verb. Also, that is possible to use as a result of. And after as a result of, then we will use gerund or we will use a noun. And so, we can use so to express a result. So let's look at some examples. Alice is a versatile athlete, therefore she was asked to participate in the decathlon. So therefore here means тому її попросили взяти участь в декатлоні. Then in number 2, as a result of winning a talent show. Again, after as a result of, we have the ing form. winning, or we can also use a noun, as in example number 3, as a result of his talent. And so the last piece of information for you for today, that are some conjunctions of purpose. Purpose – мета, тобто ціль. So to show для того, щоб сказати для того, щоб, in English very commonly, very often we use just to plus bare infinitive. For example, I study to pass my test. To можна використовувати, якраз дуже часто використовуємо в значенні для того, щоб. Я вчусь для того, щоб здати тест. Also, that is possible to use in order to, and it will have the same meaning. So we can say, I study in order to pass my exam. Or you can say, I study to pass my exam. Also, we can use so as to, so as not to do something. And we can use so that plus subject plus a modal verb. So let's look at some examples. So Verity moved to the front row so that she could see the stage better. Вона підійшла ближче до першого ряду, вона пересунулась в перший ряд, so that, для того, щоб побачити сцену краще. Or we can say, we went online to check his emails, or in order to check his emails. Ми вийшли в інтернет для того, щоб перевірити листи електронні. Or in number 3, we can say, she turned down the volume on the radio so as not to wake the baby. Вона зробила звук тихіше на радіо для того, щоб не розбудити дитину. And also, let's look at some interesting phrases as if, as though, and also by. So we can use as if in the meaning ніби, or as though, ніби щось, ніби хтось. And we can use after them a subject and a verb. For example, in number 1, we can use as though. We can say, she behaves as though she doesn't like me. Вона поводиться так, ніби я їй не подобаюсь. Or in number 2, we use as if. Jenny speaks Dutch as if she were a native speaker. Дженні говорить голландською мовою так, ніби вона є носієм мови. Or we can say, you can become fitter by taking daily exercise. Ти можеш стати стрункішим, якщо будеш робити щоденні вправи. Тобто by – це за допомогою чогось. By taking daily exercise. За допомогою вправ ти зможеш стати здоровішим. Or we can say, by learning new words, you can pass the test better. And so the last practice task for today, choose the correct option. So let's look at the word and let's choose which word is better here. So what do we choose, although or despite? And definitely it will be despite, yes, because after despite we use the ing form, and after although we need to use the subject and the verb. As though перекладається так, ніби. So let's go for number 2. And here we will use while. While Jamie is a natural athlete, he actually prefers playing music. And here while will mean although. Да, тут while має таке ж значення, як although, хоча. So since has the meaning because. And in number 3, we will use even though. Even though we played hockey at school, I have never taken part in a match. Не дивлячись на те. Не можемо використати in spite of, тому що після in spite of в нас має бути або іменник, або дієслово з закінченням ing. So then number 4. So in number 4, we will use seen as. It might be a good idea for you to captain the team today, seeing as it's your birthday. So seeing as, тому що через те, що сьогодні твій день народження. Then number 5. And in 5, we use on account of, because after on account of, we need to use a gerund, or we can use a noun, and after even though, we need to use a sentence. Тут після on account of ми якраз використовуємо або герундій, або іменник, як в нас тут далі іде, а після even though нам потрібне буде речення, підмети присудок. And the last one. I'm sure now you remember how to use despite, and you won't choose it for number 6. So that will be since he believes. Yeah, so again, since means because. Since означає в даному реченні because, тому що. Okay. Як перекладається whereas? It's very similar to but, але. Good. And so, I'm sorry, one more task. So that will be the last one for you. So let's do it really, really quickly, because I want us to practice what we've been discussing today. So let's try to fill in the gaps. We have such options as though, as, consequently, due to, in order to, nevertheless, so as not to, and so that. So let's read the first sentence, the beginning of the text, and let's choose what we can use here. Skiing is a fantastic sport. You feel you are on the top of the world. Ти почуваєшся так ніби. So what can we use in the meaning так ніби ти на вершині світу? And that is as though. Да? Так ніби ти на вершині світу. Number 2. And number 2, nevertheless. Yeah, so we can use nevertheless, we can use however at the beginning of the sentence, and after them we will use a comma. So nevertheless, when you go skiing, it is good to bear in mind a few safety tips. Однак, коли ти йдеш займатися лижним спортом, треба пам'ятати про деякі міри безпеки. And then, so as not to get hurt. Для того, щоб не поранитись. So as not to. Or we can also say, in order not to get hurt. Number 4. First of all, make sure you always keep your phone with you. You might need it. Call for help. And that is in order to. Для того, щоб. In order to call for help. Good. Then secondly, the fact that, and here we use due to the fact that. So very, very commonly we use due to the fact that as one phrase. Дуже часто якраз використовуємо такою великою фразою due to the fact that. Через те, що. Then in 6 we will use consequently, як наслідок. And after consequently also we use comma. So let's go to number 7. If you are a beginner, don't act as if you've been skiing for years. Не поводься так, ніби ти займався цим все життя. Again, as if, так, ніби. And the last one, that will be so that. Exercise caution so that you can enjoy the skiing experience again. Для того, щоб. Будь уважним для того, щоб далі ти зміг також насолоджуватись цим спортом. So let's sum up. Some tricky questions for you. So put to the chat yes or no. Can for mean because? And yeah, so definitely yes. For and because can have similar meaning. Then number 2 is also more formal than though. So yes, sure. Although is more formal, and though and but are less formal. Then do we use so to explain a reason? And that is no, because we use so to explain a result, yes, and to speak about the reason we will use because. Then number 4, do we use infinitive after despite? So, and now you remember that no, because after despite, after in spite of, we will use gerund or we will use a noun, or we can say in spite of the fact, or despite the fact that, or in spite of the fact that, and then we can use a sentence after them. And the last one, do we put a comma after a conjunctive verb? And that is, of course, yes. So after words like consequently, nevertheless, however, we will put a comma. So thanks a lot. I know that it was a difficult topic and there are a lot of things to remember, but I hope it was useful for you. And I hope now you will use more conjunctions in your writings and you will do your reading part more successfully. So thanks a lot. Have a good week and see you next Monday.